trade expert Lighthizer urges immediate action. U.S. faces existential threat from China's 400% greater war material output. On February 2, 2025, former U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer made headlines with a striking appearance on CBS's 60 Minutes, where he articulated urgent concerns regarding China's escalating military and economic power, labeling it an existential threat to the United States. His remarks come at a time when the U.S. is grappling with a significant trade imbalance with China, a situation that Lighthizer believes could have dire consequences for U.S. national security. The existential threat. Lighthizer's central argument revolves around the assertion that China's military capabilities and economic strategies represent a substantial threat to the United States. He claimed that China's military output now exceeds that of the U.S. by a staggering 400%. A disparity, he argues, could severely undermine U.S. interests in any potential conflict. Lighthizer emphasized that this advantage not only poses risks to American military readiness but also represents a broader challenge to U.S. global leadership. Advocacy for tariffs and strategic decoupling. A significant part of Lighthizer's proposed solution involves the imposition of substantial tariffs on Chinese imports. He suggested tariffs could range from 25% up to 60%, echoing proposals made during President Trump's administration. Lighthizer believes that these tariffs are necessary to correct the long-standing trade imbalance that has disproportionately benefited China. He argued that such measures would compel China to engage in a more equitable trade relationship with the U.S. In addition to tariffs, Lighthizer put forth the idea of strategic decoupling, which entails reducing U.S. economic reliance on China. This would involve limiting imports from China and restricting investments in Chinese markets. Mirroring China's own protectionist policies. Lighthizer's vision is not an outright severance of economic ties but rather a recalibration aimed at achieving a balanced trade environment. Economic ramifications. While Lighthizer remains optimistic about the potential benefits of tariffs, such as job creation and increased domestic production, some economists express caution. Mary Lovely, an economist at the Peterson Institute for International Economics, warned that higher tariffs could lead to inflated consumer prices, potentially costing the average American household an additional $200 per month. This increase in prices would not only burden consumers but could also lead to job losses in sectors reliant on imported materials. Lighthizer counters this perspective, asserting that tariffs will incentivize American companies to innovate and adapt, ultimately leading to job creation domestically. He believes that U.S. companies will learn to thrive in a new economic environment characterized by heightened tariffs, resulting in more production and upward pressure on wages. Historical context and trade policy debate. The discussion of tariffs is not new. Every U.S. president has utilized them to some degree. Lighthizer referenced historical precedents, including tariffs from the 1930s that contributed to the Great Depression. He emphasized that while tariffs can have negative consequences, they also serve as a tool for correcting significant trade imbalances that threaten U.S. economic stability. In his analysis, he pointed to the decline of U.S. manufacturing jobs, which began around 2000 and saw approximately 6 million jobs lost by 2010. Lighthizer argues that this decline correlates with the trade imbalance with China and underscores the need for a robust response from the U.S. government. The path forward. Lighthizer's strategy for addressing the perceived threats from China encompasses a multifaceted approach. In addition to tariffs and decoupling, he advocates for broader economic policies that include tax cuts, increased energy production, and regulatory reductions. He believes that a combination of these measures could lead to a manufacturing renaissance in the United States. However, the path forward is fraught with challenges. Economists remain divided on the efficacy of tariffs as a means to stimulate domestic job growth. While Lighthizer remains optimistic, the potential for retaliatory tariffs from trading partners such as Canada and Mexico looms large, raising concerns about a possible trade war. Conclusion. Lighthizer's urgent call to action highlights the intersection of trade policy and national security in the context of U.S.-China relations. As the U.S. grapples with the implications of China's growing manufacturing capabilities and military strength, the debate over tariffs and strategic decoupling is likely to intensify. While some view these measures as necessary to protect American interests, others caution about the broader economic ramifications that could accompany such a shift in policy. With tensions between the two nations at a high, the coming months will prove critical in shaping the future of U.S. trade policy and its global standing. In the recent discourse surrounding U.S.-China trade relations, former U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer has articulated a stark warning about the increasing military and economic capabilities of China. He characterizes this rise as an existential threat to the United States, emphasizing that China's output of war materials is now 4 times that of the U.S. This alarming statistic serves as a focal point for Lighthizer's argument for immediate and substantial action in the realm of trade policy. Counterintuitive information. 1. Tariffs as a double-edged sword. Lighthizer advocates for significant tariffs on Chinese imports, suggesting they could range from 25% to 60%. However, economists, including Mary Lovely, argue that such tariffs often lead to increased consumer prices, which would ultimately burden American households by an estimated $200 monthly. This indicates a counterintuitive relationship between tariffs and consumer welfare. While tariffs are intended to protect domestic industries and create jobs, they may inadvertently lead to job losses in sectors reliant on imported goods, suggesting that protective measures can harm the very economy they aim to fortify. 2. Historical perspective. Lighthizer references historical precedents, notably the tariffs of the 1930s that contributed to the Great Depression. This historical context is critical as it underlines the potential dangers of aggressive trade policies that have previously backfired. The juxtaposition of advocating for tariffs while acknowledging their historical implications raises questions about the effectiveness of such measures in achieving desired economic outcomes. 3. The perception of tariffs. There is a common narrative that tariffs are simply taxes on foreign products, thereby protecting American jobs and industries. Lighthizer supports this perspective. However, the reality is more nuanced. Tariffs are paid by U.S. importers like Walmart, which may pass these costs on to consumers, thereby shifting the burden rather than alleviating it. This highlights a counterintuitive aspect of tariffs. They may be perceived as a tax on foreign entities, but in practice they often result in higher prices for American consumers, contradicting the belief that they solely penalize foreign countries. For employment impact, Lighthizer asserts that tariffs will lead to job creation and increased wages in the U.S. Yet evidence suggests that while a small number of jobs may be saved in protected industries, many more jobs can be lost in sectors that depend on imported goods. The case of the steel tariffs, which created approximately 1,000 jobs in the steel industry while resulting in a net loss of around 75,000 jobs across other sectors, exemplifies this counterintuitive outcome. The notion that protective tariffs can lead to overall employment growth is thus challenged by empirical evidence. 5. Decoupling strategy. Lighthizer's call for a strategic decoupling of the U.S. and Chinese economies is framed as a necessary response to China's perceived threats. However, this approach could be considered counterintuitive because it risks isolating the U.S. in a global economy that increasingly favors interconnectedness. The implications of such a strategy may lead to unintended consequences such as reduced economic efficiency and higher costs for American consumers and businesses that rely on global supply chains. 6. Military capability and economic interdependence. Lighthizer argues that to maintain military superiority, economic measures like tariffs are essential. However, the counterintuitive nature of this argument lies in the understanding that economic interdependence has historically served as a stabilizing factor in international relations. The idea that increasing economic barriers could enhance national security contradicts the long-standing belief that trade fosters cooperation and peace among nations. In summary, Lighthizer's discourse around the existential threat posed by China and the proposed trade measures highlights several layers of complexity and counterintuitive outcomes. The relationship between tariffs, consumer prices, job creation, and international trade dynamics reveals a landscape where well-intentioned policies may lead to unintended adverse effects, challenging the simplistic narrative of protectionism as a straightforward solution to economic imbalances. The implications of these policies extend beyond immediate economic considerations, intertwining with national security, historical lessons, and the broader context of global trade relationships. In the recent discussions surrounding the U.S.-China trade relationship, significant points made by former Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer may be overlooked by the general public, particularly the implications of his proposals for tariffs and strategic decoupling. These points are crucial as they delve deeper into not only economic policy but also national security considerations, ultimately shaping America's future in a competitive global landscape. 1. Existential threat versus economic competition. One of the most striking assertions by Lighthizer is the characterization of China as an existential threat to the United States. This phrase is loaded with implications that extend beyond mere economic competition. It suggests a fundamental challenge to U.S. sovereignty and security. While many might focus on the immediate implications of trade imbalances or tariffs, Lighthizer's framing invites a more profound consideration of how economic vulnerabilities can translate into national security risks. Significance. This perspective encourages policymakers and the public to think critically about the interconnectedness of trade and security. A failure to address these vulnerabilities could lead to a scenario where the U.S. is ill-equipped to respond to potential military confrontations or economic coercion from China. Recognizing China as a strategic adversary rather than merely a trading partner shifts the discourse from economic to existential, demanding urgent and comprehensive policy responses. 2. Tariff ranges and economic reality. Lighthizer's advocacy for substantial tariffs ranging from 25% to 60% is grounded in the belief that such measures would rectify longstanding trade imbalances. However, this perspective may gloss over the economic realities that tariffs impose on American consumers and industries. Economists like Mary Lovely counter Lighthizer's assertions, highlighting that tariffs may lead to increased costs for consumers and potential job losses in sectors dependent on imported materials. Significance. This debate emphasizes the need for a nuanced understanding of tariffs. While high tariffs may theoretically protect certain U.S. industries, the broader economic impact could be detrimental, leading to inflation and reduced purchasing power for the average American household. The estimated $200 monthly increase in costs for families illustrates that the implications of tariffs extend far beyond the balance sheets of corporations. They affect everyday consumers, making this a critical point often overlooked in discussions focused solely on national security or industry protection. 3. Strategic decoupling. Lighthizer's call for a strategic decoupling of the U.S. and Chinese economies is particularly noteworthy. This approach advocates for a significant reduction in economic interdependence, which could reshape trade dynamics. While some may view this as a necessary step to safeguard U.S. interests, the ramifications of such a shift could be profound, affecting global supply chains and international relations. Significance. The concept of decoupling highlights a transformative moment in U.S.-China relations. It raises questions about the feasibility of completely disentangling two of the world's largest economies and the potential fallout on global markets. Additionally, it challenges the assumption that economic interdependence inherently leads to peace, suggesting that a re-evaluation of globalization and trade relationships is necessary in the context of rising geopolitical tensions. 4. Historical context of tariffs. Lighthizer draws on historical examples, notably the tariffs of the 1930s that contributed to the Great Depression. This historical lens serves to caution against simplistic tariff solutions, emphasizing the complexity of trade policy and its far-reaching consequences. Significance. By referencing past failures, Lighthizer underscores the importance of learning from history. This context invites a deeper examination of contemporary trade policies and their potential long-term effects on the U.S. economy. It is a reminder that while tariffs can be a tool for economic adjustment, they are not a panacea and must be wielded with caution and foresight. 5. Job creation versus job losses. Lighthizer's assertion that tariffs will create jobs in the U.S. is met with skepticism from economists who foresee potential job losses in other sectors as companies adjust to new cost structures. The dichotomy between job creation in protected industries and job losses elsewhere is a critical point that may be overlooked in public discourse. Significance: this highlights the complexity of labor market dynamics in response to trade policy. While certain sectors may benefit, the overall impact on employment could be negative, leading to economic dislocation for workers in affected industries. Policymakers must consider these trade-offs and seek comprehensive strategies that address the needs of workers across all sectors. 6. Technological competition. Lighthizer's commentary on technology theft and espionage brings to light the critical issue of technological competitiveness. The assertion that the U.S. could be vulnerable in a military conflict due to China's superior manufacturing capabilities raises alarms about the implications for technological advancement and innovation. Significance: this aspect of the discussion emphasizes the importance of investing in domestic innovation and securing supply chains for critical technologies. It highlights the need for a proactive approach to technological leadership as part of national security strategy. By focusing on technological independence and innovation, the U.S. can better position itself against adversaries who seek to undermine its economic and military capabilities. Conclusion: Lighthizer's insights into the U.S.-China trade relationship encapsulate a critical moment in American economic policy and national security discourse. The urgency of his message regarding tariff strategic decoupling and the existential threat posed by China demands a comprehensive examination that goes beyond surface-level economic metrics. By recognizing the broader implications of these policies, stakeholders can better navigate the complexities of globalization, security, and economic resilience in an increasingly competitive world. The overlooked dimensions of Lighthizer's arguments serve as a call to action for a more robust and nuanced approach to foreign trade and national security. 1. Existential threat of China's military power. Robert Lighthiser's assertion that China's military capabilities represent an existential threat to the U.S. emphasizes the urgency of re-evaluating U.S.-China relations. The claim that China's military output is 4 times greater than that of the U.S. raises concerns about America's ability to respond effectively in potential conflicts. This point warrants in-depth analysis of how military capabilities and economic strength are interlinked, and what strategic measures the U.S. can implement to safeguard its national security. 2. Implications of tariff policies. Lighthizer's advocacy for imposing substantial tariffs ranging from 25% to 60% to correct the trade imbalance with China brings forth a critical discussion on the effectiveness of tariffs as a trade policy tool. While he argues that tariffs would lead to job creation and balanced trade, economists like Mary Lovely counter that they could inflate consumer prices and lead to job losses in industries reliant on imports. An analysis of historical tariff impacts, economic theories on protectionism versus free trade, and case studies of past tariff implementations can provide a comprehensive understanding of the potential repercussions of such policies. 3. Economic and social ramifications of strategic decoupling. The call for strategic decoupling between the U.S. and Chinese economies invites a debate on the broader economic consequences of reducing interdependence. Lighthizer's proposal to limit imports and investments from China suggests a significant shift in the global economic landscape. An in-depth discussion could explore the potential effects on global supply chains, the domestic economy, and the long-term viability of such decoupling in a highly interconnected world. This includes examining the feasibility of sourcing alternatives and the impact on consumer behavior. 4. Historical context of tariffs and trade policies. Lighthizer's reference to the historical use of tariffs, particularly their role in the Great Depression, adds a vital perspective to the current discussion. Analyzing the historical context of U.S. trade policies can shed light on the cyclical nature of protectionist measures and their long-term effects on the economy. This point opens the floor for a discussion about the lessons learned from past experiences, the evolution of trade agreements, and how history may inform future policy decisions in the face of rising geopolitical tensions. These 4 points provide a multifaceted view of the current debate surrounding U.S.-China trade relations and the implications of Lighthizer's proposals, offering significant avenues for analysis and discussion. 1. The Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act 1930. This legislation raised U.S. tariffs on many imported goods to record levels in an effort to protect American industry during the Great Depression. The act provoked retaliatory tariffs from other countries, leading to a significant decline in international trade and worsening the economic downturn. The consequences of the Smoot-Hawley Tariff are often cited as a cautionary tale about the negative impacts of protectionist trade policies. 2. The trade war between the U.S. and Japan 1980s. During the 1980s, the United States became increasingly concerned about Japan's rapid economic growth and the trade imbalance that favored Japan. In response, the U.S. imposed tariffs and quotas on Japanese goods, particularly in the automobile and electronics sectors. This led to significant tensions between the two nations, ultimately resulting in negotiated agreements that sought to address trade imbalances but also sparked debates about the effectiveness and implications of such protectionist measures. 3. The U.S.-China trade war 2018-present, initiated under the Trump administration. This trade conflict involved the imposition of tariffs on hundreds of billions of dollars of goods traded between the U.S. and China. The rationale behind these tariffs included addressing trade deficits and alleged unfair trade practices by China, including intellectual property theft. The trade war has had widespread economic implications affecting global supply chains, consumer prices, and diplomatic relations. As with previous trade conflicts, it has generated significant debate over the effectiveness of tariffs in achieving desired trade outcomes. Future outlook on U.S.-China trade relations and military dynamics. As the U.S. grapples with the growing military and economic stature of China, the discourse surrounding trade policies, particularly tariffs and strategic decoupling, is poised to evolve significantly. Drawing from Robert Lighthizer's recent assertions about the existential threat posed by China's military output and trade practices, several predictions can be made about the future of U.S.-China relations. 1. Increased tariffs and trade protectionism. Expect an escalation in tariffs as the U.S. government seeks to balance the trade deficit with China. Lighthizer's advocacy for tariffs ranging from 25% to 60% suggests that the Biden administration may lean towards protectionist measures, especially if economic conditions worsen or if geopolitical tensions rise. Tariffs could be employed not only as a tool to protect American industries but also as a means to counter China's perceived unfair trade practices, including intellectual property theft and state subsidies for Chinese companies. 2. Strategic decoupling. The concept of strategic decoupling, reducing economic interdependence with China, will likely gain traction. This could manifest in various forms, including restrictions on Chinese investments in critical U.S. sectors, limitations on technology exports, and a push for domestic manufacturing. Sectors such as semiconductors, pharmaceuticals, and rare earth materials will likely see heightened focus to reduce reliance on Chinese supply chains. 3. Emergence of alternative supply chains. As businesses adapt to the new trade landscape, there will be a concerted effort to establish alternative supply chains outside of China. Countries like Vietnam, India, and Mexico may become more attractive for manufacturing as U.S. companies seek to mitigate risks associated with tariffs and geopolitical tensions. This shift could foster the growth of regional trade agreements and collaborations aimed at creating more resilient supply chains. 4. Increased military spending and technological advancements. Lighthizer's emphasis on the need for the U.S. to maintain military superiority indicates that defense spending will likely increase. The U.S. may focus on modernizing its military capabilities, particularly in technologies such as artificial intelligence, cyber warfare, and advanced weaponry. This arms race may further exacerbate tensions between the U.S. and China, as both nations strive for dominance in military technology. 5. Potential for economic fallout. While the U.S. government may implement tariffs and decoupling measures, the economic repercussions for American consumers and businesses could be significant. Rising prices due to tariffs may lead to public discontent, prompting debates over the effectiveness of such policies. The potential for job losses in industries reliant on Chinese imports may also stir economic unrest, making it crucial for policymakers to balance national security concerns with domestic economic stability. 6. Global economic realignment. As the U.S. adopts a more confrontational stance towards China, there may be a ripple effect on global trade dynamics. Other nations may be compelled to choose sides, aligning with either U.S. or Chinese economic policies. This could lead to the formation of new trade blocs and alliances, reshaping the international economic landscape in the coming years. 7. Diplomatic engagements and alliances. Despite the tension, there may be attempts at diplomatic engagement aimed at preventing conflict. The U.S. may seek to strengthen alliances with countries sharing similar concerns about China's rise, such as Japan, Australia, and India. Collaborative efforts in security, trade, and technology will likely intensify as these nations work to counterbalance China's influence in the Asia-Pacific region. 8. Public sentiment and political implications. The ongoing narrative surrounding China as a threat will likely influence U.S. domestic politics. Public sentiment towards China may become increasingly negative, impacting electoral outcomes and policy decisions. Future administrations could be pressured to adopt tougher stances on China, making it a central issue in political discourse. Conclusion. The future of U.S.-China relations is set to be characterized by heightened tensions, increased tariffs, and a push for strategic decoupling. As these dynamics unfold, the implications for global trade, military capabilities, and diplomatic relations will be profound. Policymakers will need to navigate the complex interplay between national security and economic stability, ensuring that actions taken today do not lead to unintended consequences that could destabilize both the U.S. and global economy. The coming years will be critical in determining the trajectory of U.S.-China relations and the broader geopolitical landscape.